Hey, welcome back. This is Mark here at JTech, and tonight we're going to discuss a little bit about clutches. As you can see on the table, I have several pieces that are here. Don't mind these; they are clutches. They just don't belong to this. Okay. What we have are 5 essential pieces, basically, and I'm going to describe them real quick to you. This would be the clutch arm or disengaging arm for the clutch assembly. This one appears to either have been a linkage type. I kind of gearing off of that because the holes in the end of it were usually there to have a spring that held the linkage and the push rod together so that they wouldn't pop out. This would be the throwout bearing, formerly known as a throwout bearing. This one's in pretty sad shape. It's pretty dry. But what this does, I'll explain in a moment, but it does fit on top of the clutch arm just as such. All right, this is our flywheel. This is a stepped flywheel, which is basically what I mean is we have a lip around the outside or the inside of the flywheel, which the clutch disc actually sets in. Okay, and a lot of times these flywheels can be machined and reused if they have, say, hot spots or hard spots in them, and you can see those by the different shiny areas that are on the flywheel, and those indicate that this thing has probably been hot at one time. If you had a straight edge, you could actually check this flywheel for cupping as well. The straight edge would have to set between the 2 raised shoulders, or if you had a flat flywheel like a majority of them are, you could put a straight edge straight across it, and you could actually use a feeler gauge and check it at different degrees in a 360 degree circle to see if you had any type of cupping. Some of the flywheels, a lot of times they tighten them down too tight, or over age, they'll actually get a tendency to have a cup put in them, which is kind of interesting phenomenon for those. As you can see, we also have a sealed pilot bearing in this one. It's a roller bearing. These can be in a roller bearing or they can be in a centered bushing. The bushing would generally goes into the back of the crankshaft, and it's impregnated with graphite or a moly type lube. And the bearings too can go in the back of the crankshaft. This particular one happens to set in the clutch or in the flywheel. So, but they all do the same purpose. They're all there for the same reason. Okay. Now, that being said, we have what we call the pressure plate. This happens to be a diaphragm pressure plate with all the multiple fingers on it. They have several different types of pressure plates, anything from the diaphragm to a Borg and Beck pressure plate. A Borg and Beck pressure plate is a pressure plate that has 3 fingers that are spaced evenly apart on it. Generally, those are more for your heavy-duty type environments, like maybe even light-duty truck to heavy-duty truck, that type of stuff, or farm trucks, if you will. And they have a lot more spring tension. And speaking of spring tension, these diaphragm clutches or diaphragm pressure plates, and even say the Borg and Beck type, they have springs that lay underneath the metal facing of the pressure plate that actually are what force the pressure plate or force the compound pressure against the clutch disc to prevent it from spinning. Okay, these fingers on the pressure plate are nothing more than leverage to lift those springs back to allow the clutch to freewheel. The clutch, on the other hand, is a 2-sided facing clutch. They have springs in them for torsional vibrations to take the vibration out of the clutch. As you can see, they also have spline in the clutch. The spline in the clutch actually engages the input shaft on a transmission. This isn't for this particular transmission, but this is the gist of it. Okay, and the pressure plate on it then would go over the transmission input shaft, and it would set pretty much like so on there, with the pressure plate being bolted to the flywheel. Okay, in order to do that particular type of deal, you'd have a what they call a pilot bearing or a pilot shaft. The pilot shaft would be the exact replica of the pilot shaft that goes with the vehicle you're physically working on. And that's how you basically line these up. Without them, I've done it, and it is a difficult time to do. If you don't have a pilot shaft and you're just trying to shotgun this thing together, it is hard because you got to have somebody in there pressing the clutch while you're trying to adjust the transmission to get it to work. Okay, going back to the cupping situation, a lot of times the cupping can be caused by improper torque specs on the pressure plate to the flywheel, and that can cause uneven stresses on the flywheel. So be very mindful of that when you're doing one. Okay, and the final piece again is the throwout bearing. The throwout bearing runs on the back of the fingers of the pressure plate, just like so. It'll have a pivot point. This one happens to be about right here. And the pivot point then allows you to push. If this was mounted solid, the amount of distance this moves is the amount of distance this pilot bearing would push in to allow this pressure plate to be lifted off of the clutch, and to allow the clutch to sit here and spin freely between the flywheel and the pressure plate, which basically disengages the clutch from the transmission, allows you to shift gears. So I hope that's informative. Flywheels can be surfaced if they need to be, but you have to be mindful on a stepped flywheel. You have to pull the dowel pins out, and any good machinist would know this, that whatever you take off the surface for the clutch on the flywheel has to be taken off of the step or the crown of the flywheel. If not, your pressures won't be right and they will never work. There are some vehicles actually that don't recommend doing that at all because they never work. So I hope it was helpful. Again, I'm Mark, I'm from JTech, and thank you for watching. Have a great evening.